Hello and welcome to Geography Year 6. Today's lesson will be on the features of coastlines. The aim of today's lesson is to understand how coastal features are formed and to identify coastal features of the UK. Today's success criteria would be to name some features of a coastline, to explain how some coastal features are formed, to explain how erosion and deposition form coastal features, to name some famous UK coastal features, and to identify the location of some famous UK coastal features. In order to understand the geography of coastlines, we need to understand different types of weathering. Weathering is the breakdown of rocks at the Earth's surface by the action of rainwater, chemicals, extremes of temperature, and biological activity. Physical weathering is caused by the effects of changing temperature on rocks, causing the rock to break apart. This process is also sometimes assisted by water. Chemical weathering is caused by rainwater reacting with the mineral grains in rocks to form new minerals and soluble salts. These reactions occur particularly when the water is slightly acidic. Biological weathering is weathering caused by plants and animals. Now let's match the type of weathering to the description in the middle column of the slide and to the picture example. Physical weathering. Rainwater collects in a crack in the rock. It freezes and forces the crack to widen. This freeze-thaw cycle repeats. Chemical weathering. Acidic rainwater falls onto rocks such as limestone. Over time it will dissolve some of the rock. Biological weathering. Roots from trees and other plants may grow into or under rocks with such force that they can cause damage or even split the rock in two. How is erosion and deposition different to weathering? Erosion is the process by which soil and rock particles are worn away and moved elsewhere by wind, water, or ice. Deposition is the geological process in which sediments, soil, and rocks are added to a landform or landmass. Weathering involves no moving agent or transport. So remember, weathering breaks rocks down. Erosion takes away this broken down material, and deposition adds the broken down rocks to a landform. What is a coastline? When discussing the geography of coastlines, we ask ourselves the following questions. What is the definition of a coastline? What would you expect to see at the coast? In terms of human geography, we may ask, what sorts of activities happen there? In terms of physical geography, the focus of today's lesson, we will ask, what natural features might we see? By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to answer most of these questions. The coast is the land along a sea. The boundary of a coast, where land meets water, is called the coastline. Now let's have a look at some of the other features of a coastline. A bay is a part of the coast where the land curves in so that the sea is surrounded by land on three sides. A headland is a piece of land that sticks out from the coast into the sea. A beach is a landform that is found along the coast which consists of loose particles. The particles composing a beach are typically made from rock such as sand, gravel, shingle, pebbles, or biological sources. A dune is a mound or ridge of sand or other loose sediment formed by the wind, especially on the seacoast. Caves occur when waves force their way into cracks in the cliff face. The water contains sand and other materials that grind away at the rock until the cracks become a cave. A cliff is a steep rock face, especially at the edge of a sea. If a cave is formed in a headland, and it eventually breaks through to the other side, it forms an arch. The The arch will gradually become bigger until it can no longer support the top of the arch. When the arch collapses, it leaves the headland on one side and a stack, a tall column of rock, on the other. The stack will be attacked at the base in the same way that a wave-cut notch is formed. This weakens the structure and it will eventually collapse to form a stump. A spit is an extended stretch of beach material that projects out to the sea and is joined to the mainland at one end. Now let's have a closer look at bays and headlands. If a coastline is made out of sections of harder and softer rock, these will erode at different speeds when attacked by waves. Where the softer rock has eroded more quickly, bays form. The harder rock erodes more slowly and forms headlands surrounding bays. Most sand comes from mountains and is created by erosion. As the rock is eroded, it can get washed into streams and rivers and carried to the sea. Erosion of the cliffs along the coast can also cause large rocks to break and fall into the sea, where they are worn down into smaller and smaller pieces as the waves toss them around. Pebbles are eventually ground down into the sand that can then be moved along the coast to form beaches. Beaches often form in bays where it is more sheltered and the sand is easily deposited. Different beaches can be at various stages of erosion, leading to beaches made of boulders, rocks, pebbles, shingle, or sand. Wind along the coast can blow sand inland, which, if obstructed, can then form piles of sand called dunes. Coastal erosion causes many different features that are commonly found on a headland. Within the cliff, softer or weak sections of the rock erode more easily. Over time, the force of waves and the grinding action caused by materials in the water, such as sand, cause small cracks to open up in the cliff. As the water forces itself into the cracks, they continue to grow in size, eventually forming caves. If a cave forms in a headland, it may break through to the other side of the cliff, causing an arch to form. As erosion continues, the base of the arch gets wider. This can weaken the top of the arch, causing it to collapse into the sea, leaving behind a stack, a column of rock. Over time, the stack will erode, causing it to fall and leave a small stump of rock behind. Now let's have a closer look at a spit. A spit is formed by deposition. First, the tide carries eroded material along the coastline. Secondly, the deposits form a long, thin, sandy area of land. Thirdly, changing winds may cause the spit to form a hook shape. And mud flats develop on the inland side of the spit. Now let's have a look at some of the more famous examples of some coastal features from around the UK. When looking at these examples, ask yourself, what features are shown? Where do you think they are found? And are they caused by erosion or deposition? Stack rocks are two detached pillars of limestone on the South Pembroke coast. Remember, stacks are formed by erosion. Spurn Head is one of the most striking features of Britain's coastline, stretching for 3.5 miles across the Humber estuary. This curving spit is only 50 meters wide in places, making it look like an elongated tongue. Remember that a spit is formed by the deposition of sand. The caves at Tintagel in Cornwall. The most famous of these is Merlin's Cave, located beneath Tintagel Castle in Cornwall, England. It is 100 meters long, passing completely through Tintagel Island, from Tintagel Haven on the east to West Cove on the west. The Needles is a row of 3 stacks of chalk that rise about 30 meters out of the sea of the western extremity of the Isle of Wight in the English Channel in the United Kingdom. Diddle-Doll is a natural limestone arch on the Jurassic Coast in Dorset, England. In conclusion, ask yourself if you achieved today's aims and met today's success criteria. If you did, you will be able to say that I understand how coastal features are formed, and I can identify coastal features of the UK. I can name some features of a coastline. I can explain how some coastal features are formed. I can explain how erosion and deposition form coastal features. I can name some famous UK coastal features. And I can identify the location of some famous UK coastal features. If you did not achieve today's aims or met today's success criteria, please go back and review this lesson. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson.